We have multiple clients booking over 50, 60, even up to 100 meetings every single month using what I call the outbound trinity: Clay, Octave, and Smartlead. The setup takes about 2 hours, and once it's running, Clay finds and enriches your leads, Octave agent researches every single lead and writes personalized copy at scale, and Smartlead sends thousands of emails while you sleep. I'm going to walk you through the entire setup on screen right now. We're going to build a complete workflow that books meetings on autopilot using our three tools. Pull up your laptop, open Clay, Octave, and Smartlead, and let's build this together. Before we dive into the tutorial, I want to give you some context. When it comes to generating leads using cold outreach, especially with cold email, there are three primary pillars: infrastructure, targeting, and copywriting. For today, we're going to focus on the last two: targeting and copywriting. I already have a couple of videos talking about how you can automate the entire infrastructure within minutes, so you can check out those over there. Let's talk about Clay. First of all, what exactly is Clay and why is everyone talking about it? There's a misconception that Clay is a database or Clay is a data source, but it's not. Clay is basically a workflow builder or an automation tool that you can use for multiple use cases. And when it comes to cold email or go-to-market, most people use Clay as a prospecting tool that allows us to do research on every single lead at scale before we reach out to them. And Clay has the ability to pull in different sales tools, AI agents, and different APIs so they can all work with one another. Let me show you a very quick example and you get the idea. Okay, so over here, I have a sample Clay table where all the information I can gather is the company name, the domain, the full name, and the LinkedIn profile. Essentially, this is my personal information. So what's missing here is my email. What I can do is essentially add an enrichment, which is pour in another tool into the entire workflow. So maybe something like Lead Magic, and use the find work email feature, right? So over here, I'm going to insert my API key because I already have a Lead Magic account. I'm going to put in the person's full name, the company, domain, and yeah, let's go ahead and run that and see what happens. Okay, so there you go. You can see right here that in Clay, what I can do is I can pour another sales tool into the workflow, and this tool is essentially helping me to find person email. This entire process is called enrichment. So if you hear people around the space talking about enrichment tool, this is exactly what they mean. Here's an important thing about Clay. It's kind of expensive and it's a lot cheaper if you get your data somewhere else and use Clay to simply enrich it. So going back to my previous example right here, what I'm doing is I'm using Clay to enrich this information to find the person's email. However, all the informations like the company name, the company domain, the person full name, I use other tools because it's a lot cheaper to go through different sources like Org AI, Apollo, Crunchbase, or something like D7 for local businesses to get the data there and import that into Clay. So to give you a further example, let's say I have a product and I want to go after all the CTOs of software companies that are based in the US with 11 and 50 employees. What I'm going to do is go to a lead source like Apollo, and then I'm going to put in all these filters in here. Again, this is not a lead list building masterclass, and Apollo might not be the best resource for you to look into all this leads data, but just an example. I'm going to Apollo and put in all this filter like job titles, location, industry, and I'm going to get a giant list of all the CTOs that are within my criteria. Yeah, again, I'm just using Apollo to show you an example, so it might not be the best for your case. Now, going back to Clay, all you have to do is build a workflow like this once and reuse it for multiple campaigns to come. So let me walk you my entire workflow, but first let me import all the data that I just downloaded just so that I can give you a good idea. Okay, so I just imported some sample data to give you a quick example, but here's the basic workflow. Now, I got all this basic information from Apollo, like name, first name, title, company name, whatever it might be. But as you can see, a couple of those data are missing information like their email, right? So that's why we had to use multiple enrichment tool like ICP or Lead Magic to essentially find those data. Because big databases like Apollo will usually give you about 70% of the email. So to get more contact information, you have to go through an enrichment process to find more data. So let me run it to show you what that looks like. So let me run a couple columns here to get to clean up the domain for this one and this one as well. I'm going to skip this column because in this table, I can also clean up the company name, but in this case, I'm not going to use the company name. I can also have an agent that can essentially do like browse the company website to see if I'm reaching out to the right company. And yeah, in this case, I'm not going to run this column just because I just want to give you an example and I don't want to waste a lot of credit. And yeah, I'm going to execute just a few more column. And as you can see right here, I clean up the data a little bit. I basically clean up the company domain. And then once all that step is out of the way, I essentially use tools like ICP to find additional information so that I can do outreach to these guys. You see that I built this entire workflow already. So when I import data in there, all I really have to do is click the run button and all of that will get executed for me. So what I can do now is I can right click this and I'm going to run on the column, click on run. There you go. Give it a second and everything will get executed.
2 seconds later.
Okay, so everything is done. Now you saw all I had to do was to right click on the column and then click on run all the rows. And essentially all the data has been executed. And here I have the final list of all the emails. So you can see that initially when I get all the data from Apollo, I might be missing some email here and there, but essentially through the enrichment process, I was able to find all that information. So I can go out there and contact these leads. Now, additionally, I also go through a verification process because we always want to double verify all the email using tools like Million Verifier or Bounce Band, because sometimes people change jobs and they forget to update their information on LinkedIn. So to avoid a high bounce rate, which can actually hurt your deliverability because all of your emails will go in spam, you have to verify that all the emails are legit. Some people think it's overkill to double verify, but I like to do it just in case. Now, you can see right here that I built this entire workflow that automatically do all the verification for me. So once all these emails are verified, I can start sending to those leads. Now, you can even use Clay to take a step further and do more enrichment, like looking at the company growth, headcount growth, or finding their technology stack, or how many people within a department that are working there. Every bit of research that you're doing manually, you can actually do it with Clay. But for this example, I'm going to keep it simple and stop right here. Okay, so we just built the entire lead list in Clay, found the companies, found the people, enriched the email, and verify everything. If you're watching this and thinking you want someone to set up this entire workflow for you, there's a link to the description to book a call. We literally build and manage hundreds of these systems for our clients every single day. Let me keep going and show you how Octave take this data and write personalized copy at scale. All right, now that you have a verified list and you're sure that these are the people who are fit for your solution, now let's talk about personalizing your emails at scale. This way, when you're sending out thousands of emails a day, every single one feels unique and it shows the prospect you've actually done your homework. To do this, I use a tool called Octave, and instead of me talking, let me show you how it works. Okay, so now let's imagine I have a product. It's an AI agent that can help with QA automation. And essentially, these two are the copy that I want to test. So when it comes to copywriting, I want to keep it short, simple, and straight to the point. So the framework that I'm currently using is called a 2-sentence framework. Basically, first sentence talk about the pain point, and the second sentence is a CTA, the call to action. And all I'm doing is ask the prospect to see if this resonates. And as you can see, I try to keep the copy as identical as much as I could, because the only thing that I want to split test is the problem statement, right? So the first copy goes something like this. Hey, I've been chatting with a couple engineering folks and many say they waste hours testing their code instead of developing features. Now, the second copy says, hey, I've been chatting with a couple engineering leaders and many say all their budget goes to development without any headcount left for QA, right? So the first one is talking about the pain point where the development team is wasting a lot of hours testing their code instead of building the product. And the second sentence talks a little bit about the pain point where all of the budget has been allocated to development instead of quality assurance, because I'm trying to sell a QA automation product, right? Now, the CTA, I'm going to keep it exactly the same. So I want to have a personalization line to say something like, because your product can do XYZ, comma, any of that resonate. So you can see most of my copy are manual. So this whole part right here is manual because I want to keep it as the control. The only part that I want to personalize is this part right here. It makes the prospect feel personal and it makes them feel like you've done some homework. And to do that, I'm going to use an AI agent called Octave. Now, Octave is an AI agent that handles all the research for the prospects that I'm reaching out to. So all I have to do is write the copy just once, and Octave uses that as the baseline and update the message based on this research. This is not going to be an Octave tutorial, but first, what you want to do is create a library in Octave. This is where you tell the agent everything about your product or service, what do you do, any competitors, your use cases, etc. There are different agents in Octave that can do different things, but for my use case, I want to focus on copywriting. And for this, I want to create what we call a content agent. What a content agent gonna do is every time you want to send an email to somebody, it's gonna go out there and do the research on the person you want to talk to, and then it's gonna tweak the copy that you have to personalize and make it relevant for them. So for example, I already have an agent built out. So here, I basically give it some instruction like you are an expert in cold email, copywriting, just a few rules like don't include any first name, give more context, use this kind of framework. Now, very important, I also want to give the Octave agent some training example, right? So a training example is something like this. Hey, since you guys, personalization, right? To mimic the copy that I want to create. So this is essentially the training example, and that's it. That's the whole thing about Octave agent. You give it some instruction, you give it some example, and it's done. Now, let's plug that into Clay and see how it works. Okay, so going back to the Clay table that I built in the beginning, I'm going to add column and add enrichment. Here, I'm going to search for Octave. So the agent name is called test agent by Wesley. Over here, I believe that's going to be run custom agent. Select my API key, select the agent, that's going to be test agent Wesley. This off, continue to add field and save. All right, there you go. Let's run the agent and see what it gives me. Okay, so it has been executed successfully. You see that all I had to do was right click here and click the run column button. See how easy it is to just set up the entire thing? One thing I forgot to do is select a conditional statement, because you can also set it up in Clay so that if the email is not valid, we don't want to run that row, just to save us some credit. And as you can see right here, the Octave agent was able to generate the personalization in my copy that I want to use. So all I'm really doing is tell it to personalize what the company is doing so that when I send the cold email to the prospect, it feels a little bit more personal. One question I get a lot is, should I personalize my message? Personalization won't save you if you have a bad offer, but personalization can actually help you with deliverability. On a bigger scale, if the spam filter sees that you're sending thousands of the same email every single day, you're gonna get blacklisted. But now, since every single email is different and is targeted and is personalized, it doesn't really seem so automated anymore. Okay, so now that we have the data and the copy, let's set up the campaign. And when it comes to sending cold email, there are a lot of debates about what are the best sending tool is. But for me, the big three are Smartlead, Instantly, and Email Bison. Each one of them has pros and cons. Some have a better UI, some have better APIs. So really, pick and choose your poison. And honestly, I avoid using anything else outside of those three to send cold email. I've been a user of Smartlead for years, so I'm going to show you how to set up a campaign using Smartlead today, but the concept is the same for any of the big three. Okay, so I am inside one of my clients' campaign, and don't worry, I already asked them for permission to use it. And I want to use this client account because there are two different versions. There's a new version of a new UI and there's an old version. So at the time of this recording, I think most people are still on the old version, but I just want to show you what it looks like with the new version. So now you're in the Smartlead workspace. All you really have to do is click on create campaign. Just name it whatever you want. I'll just do like a test. Now delete that later. Okay, cool. So now you have a campaign, and what you want to do next is add all this data into Smartlead. Now, there are two ways that you can go about it. You can export all this data and just re-upload the CSV file, or also use Clay to automate the process. All you have to do is click on add column, add enrichment, find Smartlead, and there's an option, say add lead to the campaign. Right, select that. You're gonna have to do some kind of configurations like select the Smartlead account, inserting the API key. I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna do this because I don't want to show you my API key, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I just finished configure everything, so it's super straightforward. If you know how to do it, just click on this button right here, and there should be a little button that say add new account. What you're gonna do is go back to Smartlead, click on this top right here, and then go to I think it should be profile or something like that. It should show you the API key, and really all you need to do is copy and paste that API key into this field, and you should be good to go. And just to show you a bit more on how I set this up, I select the campaign that I just created. It's called test. So test campaign, and I just fill in the correct field like email address. I want to make sure that it matches with my final email column, first name matches with my first name column and last name matches my last name column. You get the idea. There's other fields as well, but I'm not gonna fill it in for now. And most importantly, I set up a run condition. So essentially this is a conditional statement that I was mentioning earlier, because remember, we double verify our lead list earlier, so we don't want to send email to people that we cannot deliver email to them, right? So we want to avoid that. Super straightforward. Just click the use AI button and say something like only run if this column return true, and it's gonna build out a formula for you. So yeah, that's basically how I set it up. Gonna click on save and don't run. All right, let's run one of them just to make sure, and then we'll run the rest of them. Okay, nice. So it works. So basically right here, you see that it says added to campaign. And when I go back to Smartlead, I can see that there is one lead in here. So what I'm going to do now is right click and run all 14 columns. So it's going to execute all of them. You can see right here, because I have the conditional statement saying that don't run this if the email is not verified. So you see right here that it's not going to add the lead into the campaign for me. All right, going back to the campaign, let me just reload it. There you go. All right, let's set up the copy in Smartlead. Okay, actually I forgot one super important thing. So I have to create a custom variable and call it personalization, because I want to use the data that the Octave agent was able to give me into my campaign, right? So all I have to do is add it a custom field. I'm gonna name it personalizations, and then I'm gonna select content as the row in Clay. All I have to do is rerun this entire row, and you can see right here that the existing lead has been updated. So now we're good to go. So now that you added all the leads into the campaign, let's set up the actual email copy. So for the subject line, for the purpose of the test, I'm just gonna do something like first name / Wesley intro. Might be the best subject line you're ever gonna see, or might be the worst. Let me know in the comment. Email body, I'm gonna say something like, I'm gonna go back to my copy actually. Hey John, actually I'm gonna just make it easy for myself. I'm gonna copy this whole thing in here. I'm gonna change this to the prospect's first name. Cool. Now remember, this whole part right here is personalization, right? So I want to use the custom variable. Let me see. I believe I call it personalization. So earlier in Clay, I created a custom variable called personalization. So just going back here, I'm just using the same variable. Let me just click preview. Cool. So if I click on preview, you see that it does work. You see right here, since you guys are building a new AI-powered marketing measurement platform, that is the personalization, right? So yeah, that is basically how you set up the campaign. Now, remember, we want to A/B test different things, right? Because earlier, remember, we got 2 different copy. We want to A/B test the pain point statement to see which one is more relevant, right? So what I can do is click on add variant. You see right here, there's variant A, variant B, right? I want to keep basically everything the same, right? Subject line, don't want to test too many things at once, because when it does work, you're not going to know why does it work, right? What I'm going to do is for the second variation, I'm going to copy the second copy in there and repeat the same process. So name, and let me just, a little lazy today, so I'm just gonna copy that and paste that in here. Cool. So now you see that I have 2 almost identical copy, and the only thing that is different is the pain point statement. Now I can control my test, and later on when I launch the campaign, if it tells me that variation A get more positive reply than variant B, then I can just go ahead and turn off variant B. So essentially, I just set up the entire process. I got my copy personalized. Every single email goes out is gonna be different. I have variant A, variant B to test, different things. So yeah, let me just complete the whole setup process to show you what it looks like. Okay, so the next step is just selecting the email account you want to use for this campaign. I'm gonna pause the video because I don't want you to see what clients I have, so I'll be back. Okay, subsequence, I believe you can skip this. I think I do have a subsequence. I'll make another video explaining what subsequence is and how you can use subsequence, but maybe we can skip that for now. For setting, for time zone, I want to send it in Pacific time zone. Campaign start day, let's put it at the end of the month, just for example. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I want to skip Saturday and Sunday. The sending window, I want it to be, you know what? Here's a good trick for you. Let's start from 8:33, right? You don't want to make it exactly on the dot because you're trying to mimic like a very human behavior, right? And usually my team go off and I want to set the end time to 3 p.m. and I want to send an email every 21 minutes. Again, I set these on purpose just to mimic more of a human behavior. And new leads today, let's maybe put like a random number like 222. There you go. Save changes, review, and launch. There you go. So now you see that this is all the leads that I'm going to reach out to. You see that every single person has a different email, right? You got the personalization, you got, the subject line different, the name's different, you got 2 different copy variation as well, right? One person will get a copy saying something like, hey, a lot of people has been saying that they waste a lot of hours, and some leads might get a different variation saying things like, hey, a lot of other engineering leaders are saying that they don't have enough budget. So yeah, that's how we set up the campaign. And there are some additional features that you can use in Smartlead as well. So the first thing is the master inbox. Here, you can track all the replies that are coming in, and Smartlead also has an AI that can categorize each response for you. So you can see right here, I haven't read all this email yet, but I can see they are interested, some requests for more information, some are not interested. Right. Another features in Smartlead that I've been using a lot as well is called Smart Agent. So here, this is basically you can build an AI agent that can connect to your Slack, to your CRM, and give you report and update along the way. Right, you can build a lot of cool stuff in it. So I might have another video talking about this, but we stop it for today. All right, moving on. So let's say you launch the campaign. There are 2 stats that you should keep a close eye on, which are reply rate and positive reply rate. So let me scroll over here. Reply rate and positive reply rate. Reply rate tells you about deliverability, and positive reply rate tells you if it's a winning campaign. And in general, you should aim for around 2 to 3% reply rate. Anything lower than that, start looking into replacing some of these inboxes. And in the other hand, for positive reply rate, you should try to aim for at least 20%. This should tell you whether or not the market is interested in your product. So if you get anything lower than 20%, then you might want to go back and change the value proposition, the pain point angle, maybe look into the people that you are targeting, look into the way you position the copy, and see if you can make it better. Now, I know these are exceptional campaigns, but realistically, you should always aim for 2 to 3% of reply rate, and around 20% of those replies should be positive. All right, so let's break down the math. If you want to get 50 meetings a month, you just gotta send at least 500 emails a day. That's a pretty beginner number, so it's really doable. And if you get a 3% reply rate and 20% of them are positive, that means you will get about 15 replies every day, and 3 of them will be positive. You should try to aim to convert half of those interested leads into meetings or signups, and that should get you 1 or 2 meetings a day or around 50 meetings a month. Now, you might not get a winning campaign right off the bat because, to be honest, you rarely do unless you have a really good copy, a really good offer, and a really good lead list. But eventually, after iterations and iterations, you get there. Remember, everything in marketing is about testing, including cold email. So give it time and be patient before you win big. And if you want to scale the campaign more, just buy more domains, inboxes, get more leads, and repeat the entire process that I just showed you. So that's the complete outbound Trinity workflow. Clay finds and enriches your leads. Octave writes personalized copy at scale. Smartlead sends the emails and manages all of your inboxes, and you wake up to meetings booked on your calendar. This exact system is what we use for hundreds of tech companies. Some are booking 20 meetings a month, some are booking 100 plus. And if you want us to build this for you, click the first link in the description. We set up Clay, Octave, Smartlead, infrastructure, everything. And if you don't get the results that you want, we will keep working for free until we do. As always, eyes on the stars, and I'm rooting for you.